thankfully I have had a lot of opportunities to do that, and that's expanded my, the different kinds of genres. But in the same way that I listen to different kinds of music throughout the day, depending on my mood. I might be into 90s grunge, or I might feel like listening to something like Spanish guitar, and then other days I just want to hear some easy listening pop music that's whatever's on the radio. So streaming service, you know what I mean. But it's like each of those emotional experiences I get from different music songs that I'm listening to can affect my mood. And so regardless of the project that I go in, like for example, on Sunday I was brought in to do a really horrific, scary TV show filled with suspense, and it had some of the most intense visuals I've ever had to describe before. And being able to find that balance where, it was really hard to do. And then other times I'll be saying something that's kind of, this little, a shrug of the shoulder kind of comedic thing that happens on NCIS. So part of the experience from my side as the narrator is that it is a bunch of different emotional feelings, and being able to not be set or stuck into one thing and be able to say, oh, what's coming up next? Let's see what this is. What does this feel like? That kind of goes back to some of the improv classes, being able to experience life as it comes through. I don't want to get all zen about it, but it's definitely that kind of changing environment where I can't be attached to any one way.
Let's talk a little bit about, how you got into voiceover. Obviously, you've taken acting and improv classes, and you were looking in that direction. Kind of, how did it wind up that you ended up doing a lot more voiceover work?
Well, it's been a big focus of mine for voiceover work. I found that one of my first jobs was back at Walt Disney World for a great movie ride, which was a attraction that went through different movie scenes with audio animatronics stalls, and it was kind of like a live audio description. I was on mic describing what was happening around the scene. And that show, I played a host as well as a gangster, and the gangster guy blown up every 8 minutes. It was the same show over and over again. And, after the novelty wore off, it's like, well, how am I going to keep this going? And part of that, keeping it going, was finding, I wonder if this is going to work, and starting to play with the audience in real time and see what served them. Like, what was the reaction that was most satisfying to them that I could help as far as using my script goes, within the context of staying on script. So that was great training ground. And then once I got to Los Angeles, the opportunities for voiceover were usually involving workshops where I'd play with other voiceover talents, and we'd go in the booth and maybe read some commercial copy, or maybe we'd do some animation copy from some cartoons, and being able to play with those other talents and in a way that doesn't have the time constraints or the financial pressure constraints of a live session allowed me to kind of free up even more. And that's really where I fell in love with the acting of voiceover, that it is acting, and it's a different form of it. I'm not putting on a costume or learning blocking, but I'm staying on mic and bringing to life as best I can this character. So the workouts were a real great. I mean, I had some. I mean, the coaches and the talents that I'd be able to play with, that was a real gift.
It's almost like stand-up comedy in terms of playing with the audience and kind of gauging what they think you think that they will. I think obviously you're not going to have a live audience when you're doing your recording sessions, but from what you were describing earlier, I mean, that seems like what it was, is that you're kind of feeding off the audience and kind of getting to know where the audience is, and then you kind of, like you said, kind of the reaction that you get from, some of the work that you've had or whatever, and see what works, what doesn't work as well. I mean, it's kind of fascinating just to see, so much that goes into this in terms of, having to train and certain aspects of probably your experience that you were able to kind of put into it.
Absolutely. And even with if we could continue the parallel with stand-up, that we've got a predominantly blind and low vision audience that uses this service. Sighted people can use it when they're commuting, or maybe doing a workout, or just want to take a walk and catch up on their favorite show. But predominantly, this is access for blind and low vision audiences. And one of the more recent feature films that I produced the audio description for, we brought in a blind audience member, and they stayed on for the entire recording session. And it was a way for me as producer to get that feedback from the audience. And so it wasn't necessarily real time, but we were able to catch up and talk about, what was your experience? What did you like? And it's because of that feedback that I was able to get even better and more nuanced performances than originally I would have had. So with that feedback from the audience live with a stand-up comedian, our blind and low vision audiences have been incredibly helpful. And it's for them. This is who we're doing it for. So let's follow the trail to what they want and what's working for them. There's a group on Facebook it's called the Audio Description Discussion, and it's got blind people as well as some sighted people that are involved in some of this work, as well as some narrators and writers, and it's a really lively discussion, and that's been a great learning ground.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. The fact that, a lot of people sometimes will want to listen to things, like, I guess the best description is, a lot of people listen like podcasts just like mine, on the commute. They're busy, on the highway trying to get home. A lot of people are on planes wanting to, don't have access to the movies on flight, so they'll listen to stuff on the plane. And I think that the genre, does have expansion in that, in terms of, you can listen to what's going on or whatever as well. And it almost harkens back to the old radio days when they had the old radio serials where they would have to, the actors would say something and then the guy would describe what was going on in the background. The old Superman serials, for example, where, they would have to explain what Superman is doing. So, I think we're getting back to that point where people are wanting that kind of entertainment now.
It's such a great example. I know when I stare at screens for 10, 12 hours a day, it's nice to be able to still be entertained and as a sighted person, rest my eyes and still be able to dive into whether it's a podcast like yours or other kinds of entertainment. And this kind of, one of my friends even brought this up, that it's like, this is the original storytelling, that even when we were all around the campfire, not campfire, but around the fire telling stories, that we didn't have the advantage of televised or screens to tell the story. But yeah, it's a great point to bring up those radio plays. Yeah,
so it's very interesting to say the least as well. It's great to be able to see that, it's been interesting to see that the genre has come back. It's such an old genre, and now it's coming back, coming back into fashion again. Tell us, anything else, anything coming up for you in terms of work or anything that we need to look out for or listen to, I should say?
Sure. There's a few projects that I can't wait to share, and I am on Twitter at Roy Samuelson, and there's also a group that's called the Audio Description Project. And if you Google Audio Description Project, you'll find it in one of the top 5 or 10 hits. And that lists all the TV shows and all the movies and all the streaming services that have audio description. Most recent count was, I think, 3,000 new and unique titles that were released in the last month. So that's a great place to follow along. Additionally, that audio description discussion group on Facebook, you don't have to join the group. You can it's a public group, so you can see what's going on there. I'm trying my best on mainly Twitter to lift up the blind and low vision audiences that care about this work and talk about the excellence and quality there. But as far as my personal projects, it's a few series that I just am on pins and needles to share. So can't wait to be able to do that.
Well, when you do, and I'd love to have you back on to talk a little bit about that as well. It's been great to be able to talk to you about this, and I think hopefully people are a little bit more educated and in terms of what goes on with the audio, with the audio portion of there, and maybe they'll listen a little bit more to some of the things that are going on in the background as well. So it's great to be able to have you on. And anything else you want to add?
Oh, thanks so much. I'm so happy to have been on this show. This is great. I love your questions. Thank you so much. It's been great.
No problem, Roy. And like I said, when your other project comes up, I'd love to have you back on. And if you wind up being up here in Vegas, we'll have to do a live interview.
There we go. I love it. Thanks so much for the invite. I'll be sure to stay in touch.
No problem, Roy. Thank you.
Thank you.
After the break, we'll have an interview with actress Chloe Perrin.
My next guest has a very, very busy schedule ahead of her, especially considering it is Halloween. She has two really great films coming out, Mary and Itsy Bitsy, which, will really dive into the horror genre a little bit. And she's really doing some really great work on some other series as well. It's great to be able to have Chloe Perrin on with us right now. How you doing, Chloe?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I mean, like I said, obviously it's getting around Halloween time as well. I mean, a little bit anxious to see these movies come out.
Yeah, I am.
Have you had the opportunity to watch them at all?
Yes, I actually have watched them. I had 2 premieres for both of the movies.
What's been the reaction from a lot of the people that have been at the premieres?
Well, they thought it was very scary when they first saw the movie.
What was your kind of reaction to see yourself on screen in these movies in particular?
I would say that I was pretty excited to see myself like that. I mean, not everyone has an opportunity to be on the big screen, and I was especially grateful to my mother and my sister who helped me be on.
What was it like for you to be able to act in a movie, in movies like this, and to be able to work with people that have won Oscars and really have a lot more experience? And what was your kind of experience on set?
On both of the sets, actually, I had a lot of fun working with those actors, such as Bruce Davison in Itsy Bitsy and Gary Oldman in Mary. Gary Oldman was really fun to work with because he always made jokes and he played with me in between shooting the scenes. And Bruce Davison, he was really very nice to talk to, and he was very fun.
Did they give you any solid advice while you were on the set?
I actually learned from them by watching them on the sets and how they reacted to direction and how they performed.
Yeah, and with the directors, I mean, was that the same thing? Were you able to really learn a lot from the directors in terms of your acting? And did they teach you things that you never thought you could do before?
Yes, they taught me a lot of things. They taught me how to do well on their movies, and also how to perform many amazing scenes that I did in those movies.
What's the hardest part, do you think, about acting for you?
The hardest part, I'd say, would probably be, I'd have to say the auditions, because it's actually quite hard. Because it's actually quite hard to get the auditions if you're not particularly ready for them yet. And I do try my best to get the auditions by working with my acting coach, Gary Oldman, and he's actually very good with what he does.
I mean, a lot of times you get a script right in front of you that you're not familiar with or anything like that as well. I mean, your acting coach obviously helps you out with the preparation for that if that ends up being the case, correct?
Yes, he does help me out with it.
Is it getting a little bit easier for you to kind of go into auditions kind of sometimes blindly without knowing what's going to be happening?
I wouldn't say it's particularly hard because I have a lot of support from my family that helps me go into the auditions feeling great.
How is that for you, to be able to, obviously there's going to be a little bit of nerves going into an audition, but just to have that family support there and, to go into an audition with a positive mood.
Yeah, it can actually really help your performance if you go into the audition feeling great.
This is like I said, a little bit more of the horror, dramatic kind of situation in these two movies as well, and you've also done some comedies as well. Do you prefer comedy over drama, or is it pretty much the same? Do you think it's pretty much the same for you?
I think that I prefer dramas, but comedy is also very fun. The reason that I like dramas so much is because it's so interesting to see what's going on behind the scenes in movies, and I really like how complex the stories and characters get.
Do you read a lot of stories? Do you have any favorite authors or favorite stories that you read often?
Yes, I actually actually love to read.